Hello and welcome back to Bedtime Game Stories. Tonight we return to the world of The Last of Us. 4 years have passed since Joel carried Ellie out of that hospital in Salt Lake City. 4 years since he told her a lie to keep her alive. Tonight we discover what that lie has cost and what love is truly willing to sacrifice. Get comfortable. Let your body sink into the warmth around you. Breathe in slowly and exhale completely. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands open. There's nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to be. No problem that cannot wait until morning. Just here. Just this story. Let it carry you gently toward rest. Our story begins in Jackson, Wyoming. In the mountains, in the snow, in the closest thing to home that either of them has ever known. Prologue. Jackson. It is the year 2037. Winter has settled deep over Jackson, Wyoming. The kind of winter that makes the world feel smaller. The mountains closing in on all sides, white and enormous and silent, the sky a deep iron grey that presses down on the valley like a lid. But inside Jackson's walls there is warmth. The town has grown in 4 years. New buildings have gone up along the main street, a bakery, a schoolhouse, a small medical clinic with actual glass in the windows. The roads have been cleared and gravelled. A second water tower stands at the north end of town, painted red by a group of teenagers who thought it was funny and were not entirely wrong. Children have been born here who have never known anything other than Jackson, who think walls and patrols and ration schedules are simply how life works. Perhaps that is the most remarkable thing about Jackson. Not that it survived, but that it has become ordinary. Horses move along the main road, their hooves crunching in the packed snow, their breath clouding in the cold air. Riders in heavy coats and wool scarves nod to each other as they pass. Smoke rises from chimneys. The smell of wood smoke and pine and something baking somewhere drifts through the streets. The hydroelectric dam hums steadily at the edge of town, keeping the lights on, keeping the cold at bay. Electric lights in windows after dark. These are not small things. Ellie is 19 years old. She lives in a small apartment above a hardware store on the east side of town. She has lived there for 2 years, since she was old enough and stubborn enough to insist on her own space. And in those 2 years, she has made it entirely, unmistakably hers. The walls are covered. Drawings, pinned and taped at every angle. Sketches of faces and hands and maps of places she has been. Pencil studies of horses and buildings and the mountains visible from her window. Comic books are organized carefully on a shelf she built herself, following instructions from a how-to book she found in the Jackson Library, arranged by series and issue number with the precision of someone who has strong opinions about this. It smells of old paper and guitar strings and the particular, indefinable smell of a space that belongs to one person. She still has Joel's watch, not his broken one, that was buried with him in the old world. This is the watch Sarah gave him, the one that was fixed and then stopped and then found again. She keeps it on the windowsill. She winds it every morning. She plays guitar. Joel taught her in the evenings after everything, sitting across from each other in his living room with the fire going, working through chord shapes with the patience he applied to almost nothing else. He would demonstrate the same progression over and over without sighing, his large, scarred hands gentle on the strings. When she finally got something right, he would not make a big deal of it. He would just nod slightly and move on to the next thing. She is good now. She would never say so, but she knows it. Joel lives 4 blocks away. His house is small and warm, the kind of home that accumulates comfort slowly. A good chair by the window, a bookshelf crowded with salvaged paperbacks, a kitchen that always smells of coffee in the mornings even when there is no coffee. He is older now, his hair is fully silver, his beard thick and white, his face more deeply lined than it was when they walked into Jackson together 4 years ago. He moves a little slower in the mornings, he complains about his knees when the temperature drops. But his eyes are different. The coldness that used to live in them, that careful, calculated blankness he wore like armor for 20 years, has softened, not disappeared. It is still there if you know how to look, but softened around the edges the way ice softens in late February, still solid, but no longer absolute. Jackson did that, Time did that, Ellie did that. They have dinner together twice a week, sometimes more. They sit at his small kitchen table and argue about music. He maintains that everything recorded after 1995 is a form of noise. She maintains that his taste is a medical condition. He teaches her old songs on guitar, country, and folk songs, and one deeply embarrassing one about a horse named Patches that she has secretly memorized completely and will never admit to. She brings him comic books she has pre-screened for ones he will actually enjoy, and watches him turn the pages faster than he means to while pretending he isn't interested. It is not complicated. It is simply good. On a cold Friday evening in November, there is a birthday party in the town hall. One of the older settlers, a man named Dave, is turning 60 and seems genuinely surprised to have made it this far. The hall is strung with salvaged lights, warm and bright, crowded with people who have decided, against every reasonable expectation, to celebrate being alive. Joel is on the small stage with a few other musicians playing guitar. He is not performing exactly. Joel does not perform. He is simply sharing the way you share a fire on a cold night, offering something outward, not for applause, but because warmth is better when it moves between people. He plays an old song, slow and steady, the kind of song where half the room knows the words without being able to say where they learned them. The lights are warm. The room smells of wood smoke and mulled cider. His eyes find Ellie across the crowded room. He smiles. A real one. Full and unguarded. The smile she spent most of their first year in Jackson wondering if he was capable of. She smiles back. She means it completely. Later, after the music and the dancing and the warmth, they find each other on the porch outside. The cold hits them after the heat of the hall, clean and sharp, their breath misting in matching clouds. The sky above Jackson is extraordinary on clear nights like this, the stars dense and brilliant without any light pollution to dim them, the Milky Way a river of cold fire overhead. Joel leans on the porch railing. Ellie stands beside him. "You doing okay?" he asks. His voice is quiet, the way it gets when he actually wants to know the answer. "Yeah," she says. "You?" "Better than I deserve," he says. He says this sometimes without self-pity, without fishing for reassurance. Just as a fact he has made his peace with. They stand in comfortable silence for a while. The kind of silence that only exists between people who have survived something together. The kind that does not need to be filled. Ellie looks at the stars. She has wanted to ask him something for 4 years. The question has come up before, many times, always pushed back down. About the hospital, about Marlene, about what really happened, and why, and whether the lie he told her was a kindness or something else. She has chosen not to ask. She has chosen the life they have instead. Tonight, she almost asks. "Joel," she says. He says. She looks at his profile in the darkness, the silver hair, the beard, the particular set of his jaw that she has come to know the way you know a landscape, not by thinking about it, but by simply having been there. "Nothing," she says. "Good night." He turns to look at her. Something passes across his face, understanding, or something close to it. "Good night, baby girl," he says. She goes inside. The warmth of the hall wraps around her. She does not look back. It is the last normal night. Chapter 1. The last night. The next morning, the weather changes. A storm rolls in off the mountains before noon, fast-moving and heavy, the kind of Wyoming blizzard that turns the world white in under an hour. By midday, the streets of Jackson are nearly empty. Sensible people are indoors. Joel and Tommy ride out on the Eastern Patrol before the worst of it arrives. They mean to cover the perimeter quickly and return before the storm gets bad. It is a route they have ridden dozens of times. They know the landmarks, they know the terrain. The storm gets bad. It comes in faster than anyone predicted. The white-out conditions arrive suddenly, turning familiar ground into featureless grey-white nothing. Snow drives horizontally into their faces. The horses slow, unhappy, their ears back. Joel and Tommy try to cut back toward town, but they have ridden further east than they realized, and the landmarks are gone, and the wind makes it impossible to tell direction. They stop in the shelter of a ruined barn to wait it out. That is when the strangers find them. There are 6 of them, armed and organized, moving through the blizzard with the focused efficiency of people who have been planning this for a long time. They come from multiple directions at once, from the barn door, from the window, from a gap in the rotted wall. And Joel and Tommy are surrounded before they fully understand what is happening. Their leader steps forward. She is tall, exceptionally tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of physical presence that comes from years of deliberate, purposeful training. Her hair is blonde, pulled back tightly. Her eyes are pale and calm, the calm of someone who has been working toward a single moment for a very long time and has finally arrived. Her name is Abby. She is 22 years old. Joel does not know her. He has never seen her before in his life. She has been looking for him for 4 years. Joel Miller killed her father. In Salt Lake City, in that hospital 4 years ago, Joel went through the building room by room. He killed Firefly soldiers. He killed Marlene in the parking garage. And in the operating room, he killed the surgeon. The man standing over Ellie with a scalpel. The man who was going to remove the mutated cordyceps from her brain. The man who believed he was hours away from saving the world. Dr. Jerry Anderson, Firefly surgeon, Abby's father. She was 17 years old when she heard the gunshots from outside the OR. She ran toward them, not away, toward, and burst through the door to find her father on the floor. She dropped to her knees beside him. She took his hand. She was still holding it when he died. She has spent 4 years making herself into something that could find Joel Miller. She trained until her body became something she barely recognized, stronger than grief, harder than loss. She found her people. Owen, her oldest friend, who knew her before everything. Mel, sharp and practical. Nora and Manny and Jordan, who had all lost someone in Salt Lake City, all been waiting for something to move toward. She led them across the country. She found him. In the ruined barn, in the blizzard, Joel and Tommy are disarmed and taken. Abby looks at Joel for a long moment. She has imagined this moment so many times, on so many cold nights, in so many tents and camps and abandoned buildings across the years of traveling. She has run through what she would say, what she would feel, what the relief would feel like when it finally came. She was right about one thing. It feels like something. What happens in that barn is brutal. Tommy is restrained and forced to watch. He shouts Joel's name until his voice gives out, until the shouting becomes something that is not quite a word anymore. Joel Miller, who survived 20 years of the apocalypse, who crossed a continent, who carried a girl on his back through the ruins of the world and learned, against every instinct he had, to love her like a daughter, is beaten to death with a golf club. The storm howls outside. The wind finds every gap in the barn walls. Ellie arrives with a search party from Jackson. They followed tracks in the snow, moving fast, too late. She comes through the barn door and takes in the scene, and her legs go out from under her. Abby's group retreats through the back of the barn into the blizzard. They are gone before Ellie can process what she is looking at. She crawls to Joel. She takes his hand. It is still warm. She says his name. Once, very quietly. Then again in a rhythm like she is trying to call him back from somewhere not too far away. He does not come back. The watch on his wrist, Sarah's watch, the one that was fixed and then smashed and then found again, has stopped. The hands are frozen. The snow blows in through the open door and settles on the floor, on his boots, on the still surface of the watch. Outside, the blizzard goes on as blizzards do, without regard, without pause, covering everything equally in white. Chapter 2. Seattle, Ellie's Day. 1. Ellie stays in Jackson long enough to bury him. She stands at the grave in the frozen ground with her hands at her sides and does not know what to do with them. Tommy stands beside her, his face a mask. Maria stands beside Tommy. Other people from Jackson come. Joel had more friends than he ever admitted to. And they stand in the cold and say things that are true and kind and completely inadequate. Ellie does not speak. Afterward, she goes back to her apartment above the hardware store. She sits in her chair by the window. She looks at his watch on the windowsill. The hands are still stopped at the same time they stopped in that barn. She does not sleep that night or the next. On the third day, she starts packing. Dinah finds her doing it. Dinah, dark-haired and quick-eyed, warm in a way that Ellie has never quite been able to match, stands in the doorway of the apartment and watches Ellie roll a spare jacket into her pack and does not ask if she is sure. "I'm coming," Dinah says. "You don't have to," Ellie says. "I know," Dinah says. She's already packing. They follow the trail west. Abby's group left traces. Witnesses in the farms outside Jackson who saw them pass, tracks in the snow before the storm covered everything, a name overheard, a direction pieced together from fragments. The trail leads to Seattle, to the WLF, the Washington Liberation Front, a military organization that has fortified the ruins of the city and controls it with guns and discipline and the particular brutality of people who believe they are building something worth protecting. Abby's people. Tommy goes separately. He will not travel with them, will not slow down, will not wait for plans. He has one direction, and he moves in it. Jesse follows them both. He is Ellie's oldest friend in Jackson, steadier than either of them, the kind of person who shows up without being asked and without making you feel like you owe him for it. He does not ask permission. He loads his pack and gets on his horse and goes. The journey to Seattle takes days. They move through the ruins of small towns and the overgrown interstates and the long stretches of wilderness that have reclaimed the highway corridors. They camp in abandoned gas stations and farmhouses, and once, memorably, in the back of a Costco that has been turned into a very large and slightly terrifying mushroom garden by 20 years of cordyceps growth. They do not talk much about what they are going to do when they get there. Seattle reveals itself gradually as they come down from the hills to the east. First, the smell of smoke and salt water on the wind, then the distant sound of what might be gunfire, then the city itself emerging from the overcast like something from a dream. It is vast. The Space Needle rises above the overgrowth, its observation deck wrapped so thoroughly in vines that it looks like it grew there rather than being built. The downtown towers lean against each other in various states of structural compromise, their lower floors flooded by the rivers that have broken their banks and reclaimed the streets. Entire neighborhoods have disappeared under forest, real forest, dense and dark, growing from the upper floors of buildings, roots cracking through concrete and asphalt in a slow, relentless, patient expansion. Wildflowers grow in the median strips, seabirds nest in the old stadium lights. A deer picks its way carefully through the rubble of what was once a shopping district, pausing to look at them with calm brown eyes before moving on. Nature has been patient. It waited 20 years and now it is everywhere. But the city is not at peace. The WLF controls the fortified stadium at the city's heart, and the surrounding blocks, the streets, patrolled by armed soldiers in military surplus gear who shoot first in the contested zones. The Seraphites, a religious community that has rejected technology, mark their faces with ritual scars and built a theology out of the apocalypse, hold the island in the bay and the western neighborhoods and the high ground above the waterfront. Between their territories, the streets are mined and watched and hung with the bodies of the dead as warnings. They have been killing each other for years. The hatred between them is so old and so thorough that neither side can fully remember what it started over. Ellie moves through the war like it is weather. She navigates around the patrols and the minefields and the snipers on the rooftops, always moving west, always moving toward Abby. The war is someone else's problem. She has her own. On the first night, they find shelter in an old theatre in the downtown. It is magnificent even in its ruin. A grand old building from the early 20th century, built to feel permanent, with a domed ceiling painted with faded murals and carved plasterwork along the walls, and a stage wide enough to lose yourself on. The velvet seats have rotted to their frames. The chandelier hangs overhead, thick with cobwebs, its crystals dulled by 20 years of dust. But the walls are solid, the roof holds, it is dry and defensible, and as close to safe as anything in Seattle. They build a fire in a metal trash can near the stage. The smoke goes up through a hole in the ceiling where a skylight used to be. The fire throws orange light across the old stage and the empty seats, and for a moment, the theatre looks almost like what it used to be. Dina sits across the fire from Ellie. She has been quiet since they entered the city. More quiet than usual, which for Dina is noticeable. She turns her mug of water in her hands. She looks at the fire. "I need to tell you something," she says. Ellie looks at her. "I'm pregnant," Dina says. "Jessie's. I didn't know. Oh, I didn't let myself know before we left. I'm sorry. I should have told you before." The fire crackles. Somewhere outside, distant and muffled, something explodes. Ellie is quiet for a long moment. She looks at Dina. She looks at the fire. She thinks about what this means, about what she has already asked Dina to risk by coming here, about what it means to have this information and continue. "Okay," she says finally. "Okay," Dina says. "I'm not leaving you," Ellie says. "That's not changing. None of this is changing, but I needed to know." Dina lets out a breath. Her shoulders drop slightly. "Okay," she says. "Okay," Ellie says. They sit by the fire for a long time after that, not talking, listening to the city outside, the distant sounds of the war that is not their war, the rain beginning on the roof, the creak of the old building settling in the dark. Eventually they sleep. Outside, Seattle burns somewhere in the distance, an orange glow against the low clouds. Chapter 3. Seattle, Ellie's Day. 2. The second day is harder. Ellie moves through WLF territory in the rain, tracking leads through the soaked and silent streets. She needs to find someone who knows Abby, someone who can give her a direction, a location, a name. She works her way toward the WLF's main base, the old sports stadium, its parking lots turned into fields, its concourses turned into barracks, an entire community built inside a structure designed for spectacle. From the outside, it looks impenetrable. Ellie finds a way in anyway. She moves through the stadium carefully, listening at doors, reading the handwritten notices pinned to boards, watching the patterns of the patrols. She is looking for a name, for any connection to Abby and her group. She finds more than she bargained for. A soldier spots her in a restricted corridor and raises the alarm, and suddenly she is running through the stadium's back passages, down service stairs, out through a loading dock into the alley behind the building. She fights her way through 2 guards at the exit, and then she is in the street and moving, heart hammering, rain cold on her face. She gets away. She is good at getting away. Joel taught her a great deal about getting away. The lead she pulls from the stadium points her to the hospital on the north side, a secondary WLF facility, less defended, used as a medical station and a holding area. Abby's group has connections there. Someone there might know where Abby is. She finds the hospital in the early afternoon. The upper floors are occupied by WLF medics and their patients. The lower floors are something else entirely. The cordyceps has grown thick in the basement levels. It coats the walls and the ceiling in pale, branching masses, glowing faintly in the dark. Spores hang in the air like fine dust, visible in the beam of her flashlight. She pulls on her gas mask before descending the stairs. The sound of her own breathing fills her ears, slow and rasping, amplified by the mask. She finds Nora on the 3rd basement level. Nora is one of Abby's group. She recognizes the description from the witnesses outside Jackson. She is hiding behind a collapsed shelving unit in what used to be a storage room, a gas mask on her face, a knife in her hand. She is frightened. She has been running from something or someone, and she ran out of places to run. She looks at Ellie and knows immediately why she is there. "Please," Nora says. Her voice is muffled by the mask. "Just listen." "Where is she?" Ellie says. She had her reasons. Nora's voice shakes, but she keeps going. "Joel took everything from us. He killed her father. He killed the chance for a cure. Do you understand what that means? Everyone who has died since then, from the infection, from the violence, from all of it, that is on him. He made that choice." "Her name is Ellie," Ellie says quietly. Her voice is very even. The girl on the table. "Her name is Ellie. I'm Ellie. And Joel was my family." Nora has nothing left to say to that. What happens in that basement is something Ellie will not speak of. Not to Dina, not to Jessie, not to anyone, ever. She seals it away in a part of herself she does not visit and does not examine and does not show to anyone. She climbs back out of the basement alone. She walks back to the theatre in the rain. She is soaked through by the time she arrives, her boots squelching on the old carpet, her hair plastered to her face. She builds a fire. She sits in front of it and stares into the flames for a long time. Then she picks up Joel's guitar from where she left it wrapped in its blanket against the wall. She brought it from Jackson. She is not entirely sure why. It is heavy and awkward to carry and entirely impractical. But it seemed important. It seemed like something she needed to have with her. She settles it in her lap. She puts her fingers on the fretboard. She plays the song he taught her last. It is a slow song, a quiet song, the kind of song that sounds like it was written for exactly this. For sitting alone in a dark place with the rain outside and a fire going down and someone gone, she gets through the first verse, the second verse. Halfway through the third verse, her fingers stop moving. She sits with the guitar in her lap and her hands still on the strings and the fire crackling and the rain on the roof. She breathes. After a while, she sets the guitar carefully back against the wall. She lies down on her bedroll. She does not sleep. Chapter 4. Seattle, Ellie's Day. 3. Jesse arrives on the third morning. He comes through the theatre's side door in the grey early light, rain-soaked and carrying more supplies than strictly necessary, because Jesse always carries more than strictly necessary. He finds Ellie sitting on the edge of the stage and Dinah asleep in the front row of seats. He looks at Ellie's face. He does not ask how she is doing. Jesse is smart enough to know when that question is not a useful one. He sits beside her on the stage and hands her a piece of dried meat from his pack. "Eat," he says. She eats. They sit together for a while in the quiet of the morning, listening to the rain. Jesse does not push for information. He does not make plans out loud. He simply sits there, steady and present, the way he has always been. The human equivalent of solid ground. Eventually, Ellie tells him what she knows. The aquarium on the waterfront, a secondary WLF facility, smaller and less heavily guarded than the stadium. Abby's group has been seen there. It is the best lead she has. Jesse listens. He nods. "Tonight?" he says. "Tonight," she says. They spend the day preparing, moving through the city carefully, gathering supplies, mapping the route to the waterfront. The rain continues. Seattle seems to have an unlimited supply of it, a grey and endless precipitation that turns the ruined streets into shallow rivers and makes the overgrown buildings steam. Dina is quieter than usual. She is careful on the terrain, careful on the ladders and the ruined staircases, careful in the way that someone is careful when they are carrying something precious and fragile. At nightfall they move. The road to the aquarium takes them through the waterfront district, flooded streets navigated by boat and by the elevated walkways that the WLF has strung between buildings, swaying bridges of rope and salvaged lumber that creak alarmingly in the wind. Below the water is black and cold, littered with the debris of the old world. The aquarium emerges from the dark ahead of them. It is a large building, old and sturdy, its entrance flanked by decorative anchors gone green with age. Light leaks from the windows, real electric light, powered by the WLF's generator network. Guards move in pairs around the perimeter. They find a way in through the roof. A service hatch, unlocked, opening into the upper level of the main exhibit hall. Ellie drops through the hatch and stops. The tanks are still full. 20 years after the world ended, the aquarium's life support systems are still running, whether by the WLF's maintenance or by some miracle of engineering she cannot imagine. The water in the tanks is clear and blue lit, and behind the glass, fish move in slow and unhurried arcs. Sharks, sea turtles, a cloud of small silver fish that turns as one, catching the light. Jellyfish drift near the surface of one tank, their translucent bodies pulsing with soft light. Blue and white and almost painfully beautiful. Ellie stands in the dark exhibit hall and stares. For one moment, just one, she is not in Seattle, not on this mission, not carrying what she is carrying. She is just a person looking at jellyfish. Then Jessie taps her shoulder and she comes back. They move deeper into the building. The plan unravels as plans do, quickly and all at once. A guard they did not account for, a door that should have been clear. Tommy separated in the confusion taken by WLF soldiers before any of them can get to him. They split up trying to recover the situation, covering too much ground with too few people. Ellie is moving through the lower level, ankle deep in water that has leaked in from somewhere, the blue emergency lights casting everything in cold shadow. When she hears the shot, she turns. Jesse is on the ground. He was shot through the head. He was there, and then he was not, in the time it takes to blink. Ellie screams his name. The sound bounces off the tank glass, off the water, off the walls of the flooded corridor. The fish in the tanks do not react. The jellyfish drift on. She drops to her knees beside him. Jessie, who came to Seattle because she was here. Jesse, who loaded his pack and got on his horse and followed without being asked. Jesse, who was going to be a father. Jesse, who was solid ground. She does not have time. Abby finds her 30 seconds later. They meet in the flooded corridor between two large tanks. the blue light making everything look like the bottom of the ocean. Abby is with a companion Ellie has not seen before. A boy, young, dark-skinned, watching from further back with a bow in his hands. Ellie fights. She fights the way she has been fighting for 3 days, without calculation, without strategy, with the thing that has replaced both of those since the barn in Wyoming. She fights, and Abby fights back, and it is brutal and exhausting, and the cold water splashes around their feet, and neither of them is holding anything back.
Abby wins. She is bigger and stronger, and she has not been running on grief and no sleep for the past week. She gets Ellie down, face up in the cold water, and kneels over her with a knife at her throat. She looks up. She sees Dina.
Dinah is standing at the end of the corridor, her hands raised, her face white with fear. She is visibly pregnant. She is trying to keep her breathing steady and not entirely succeeding. Something moves across Abby's face. It is not quite pity. It is not quite recognition. It is something that comes from a place in her that the last 4 years have not entirely reached. She steps back. She takes her knee off Ellie's chest. She straightens up. She is breathing hard, her hands still shaking slightly from the fight. "I'm letting you go," she says. Her voice is rough. "You and your friend, walk out of here. Don't follow us. If I see you again—"
"I know," Ellie says.
"If I see you again," Abby says, "I will kill you."
She means it. Ellie can see that she means every word of it.
Ellie gets up. She walks to Dina. She takes Dinah's arm. She does not look back at Jessie on the floor.
She carries that out of the aquarium with her into the cold Seattle rain, and she will carry it for the rest of her life. Tommy is gone. Somewhere in the city, still moving, still hunting. Ellie and Dinah walk away from the waterfront in the dark and the rain.
They go home. Chapter 5. Abby, 3 days earlier. Now the story steps back 3 days. To the morning after the barn in Wyoming. To the morning after Joel Miller. To Abby, she wakes up in the WLF stadium before dawn. Her bunk in the barracks is narrow and hard, the blanket thin, the pillow flat from years of use. Around her, the other members of her group sleep. Owen in the next bunk, his breathing slow and even. Mel curled on her side across the aisle. Manny sprawled on his back with one arm over his face.
Abby lies on her back and looks at the ceiling. She has been awake for most of the night. This does not surprise her. She expected the night to be difficult. The adrenaline, the aftermath, the long drive back to Seattle through the dark. She expected to lie awake, processing it.
What she did not expect is this. The silence. For 4 years, the inside of Abby's head has been loud. Not with voices, not with anything she could describe precisely, just loud in the way that a room is loud when an engine is running in it. A constant background noise of purpose and direction, and the next step and the step after that. She has been moving towards something for so long that movement has become her natural state. Now she has arrived.
And the engine has stopped.
She stares at the ceiling and waits for the relief to come. The closure. The satisfaction of a thing completed. The peace that she told herself. On every difficult night of the past 4 years, was waiting for her on the other side of this. It does not come. There is only silence, a deep, echoing silence in a place that used to be full of noise. She gets up before the others wake. She dresses in the dark. She walks out of the barracks into the stadium's main concourse, past the morning guards who nod at her. Down the corridor that leads to the lower levels, she walks. The stadium is enormous, a city within a city, its field converted to growing plots where beans and squash and root vegetables grow in careful rows, its concourses lined with workshops and storage rooms, and a medical bay and a school. 300 people live here. She has been here for months, embedded with the WLF, working toward what she came to Seattle to do. She walks through all of it and feels nothing in particular. Owen finds her eventually in the mid-morning, sitting on a bench near the lower-level exit that faces the waterfront. He sits beside her without asking if she wants company. He has always done this, shown up and sat down without ceremony, as if his presence is simply a fact to be acknowledged rather than a favor to be granted. He is the only person who knew her before the hospital, before the training, before she made herself into what she needed to be. He knew her when she was 17 and breaking apart, and he held some of the pieces, and she has never found a way to tell him what that meant. He looks at her face. "How do you feel?" he asks. "Fine," she says. He does not believe her. She can see that he does not believe her. He does not push it. They sit together in the corridor for a while. Outside, through the narrow windows near the ceiling, the Seattle sky is its usual grey, the rain beginning its usual morning pattern against the glass. "What now?" Owen says. "I don't know," she says. This is the most honest thing she has said to anyone in 4 years. In the afternoon, she is restless enough to move. She takes a patrol assignment, a sweep of the lower levels of the stadium, checking the maintenance corridors and the storage rooms and the old locker rooms that have been converted to additional sleeping quarters. It is routine work, the kind that requires attention without requiring thought. She is in the east stairwell on the 3rd basement level when she hears something. A sound from the floor above, a scuffle, a small involuntary noise quickly suppressed. The sound of someone trying very hard to be silent and not quite managing it. She goes still. She pulls her knife. She moves up the stairs slowly, heel-toe, keeping her weight to the outside of the steps where they are least likely to creak. She comes around the corner and stops. 2 people are pressed against the wall in the shadows of the corridor. The first is a boy. He is perhaps 13 years old, small and wiry, with close-cropped dark hair and the ritual scar of the Seraphites on his face. A thin line, carefully made, that marks him as one of the cult that has been killing WLF soldiers for the past 2 years. He is pressed back against the wall with the practiced stillness of someone who has been trained to hide, but his eyes are moving. Between her face and the door behind her, and the stairwell and back to her face, with the rapid assessment of someone who is very frightened and very alert. He has a bow across his back. He's not reaching for it. Behind him, half hidden by his body, is a girl, older, perhaps 16. Her face has the same Seraphite scar. Her arms hang at wrong angles, both of them broken, the bones set incorrectly in the swelling.
The kind of injury that happens when someone who knows what they are doing breaks something methodically rather than accidentally.
She is conscious. Her face is very pale and very still, the stillness of someone managing an enormous amount of pain. The boy looks at Abby. "Please," he says. His voice is quiet and remarkably steady for someone who is clearly terrified. "We're not going to fight you. We just need help."
Abby looks at them for a long moment. They are Seraphites. They are her enemies by association, by location, by the logic of the war she has embedded herself in. The WLF soldiers she has been living with have lost friends to Seraphite arrows and Seraphite blades. She knows the names of some of those friends.
She looks at the girl's arms. She looks at the boy's face. "Come on," she says. She takes them to the medical bay.
She tells the medic that she found them outside. Doesn't explain more than that. Doesn't invite questions. She waits in the corridor while the medic examines the girl, while the sound of the girl's carefully controlled breathing comes through the door. The sound of someone refusing to make more noise than strictly necessary. The boy sits on the bench beside her.
He does not thank her. He does not make conversation. He sits with his hands in his lap and his eyes on the medical bay door and waits with a patience that seems too large for someone his age. After a while he says, "Her name is Yara." "Abby," she says. He nods. "Lev," he says.
They sit in silence for another hour.
When the medic comes out, he says the arms can be set, but it will take time and it will hurt, and Yara needs rest and proper care, and somewhere safe to do it. Abby looks down the corridor. She looks at the boy, at Lev, sitting on the bench with his hands in his lap.
She does not know why she does what she does next. She will think about it later and not be able to fully explain it. Maybe it is the silence inside her where the purpose used to be. Maybe it is the girl's arms. Maybe it is something in Lev's face that she recognizes without being able to name.
"I'll sort it," she tells the medic. She goes back to the bench.
"You're safe here," she tells Lev. "For now."
He looks at her. "Why?" he says. She does not have a good answer for that. "I don't know," she says. He considers this for a moment. Then he nods, as if it is a satisfactory answer. She sits back down on the bench. Outside, through the narrow stadium windows, the rain continues.
Chapter 6. Abby, Seattle. Day 2. The second day, Yara's arms have been set and splinted, and she is resting in a small room in the lower level of the stadium, sleeping in the exhausted way of someone whose body has been through something significant. Lev sits beside her cot. He has barely moved since they arrived.
Abby brings food in the morning, bread and dried fruit, and a tin cup of something warm. She sets it on the floor beside Lev. He looks at it. He looks at her. "Thank you," he says. He eats.
She watches him eat and thinks about the fact that she still does not know why she brought them here.
By mid-morning, it is clear that Yara needs more than the stadium's medical bay can provide. She needs antibiotics. Real ones, not the diluted salvage that the WLF hands out. And she needs proper surgical equipment to recheck the setting of the bones. And there is one place in Seattle that has both of those things. The old hospital on the north side of the city, in territory that the Seraphites control.
Abby looks at the map on the wall of the corridor.
She looks at Lev. "Do you know the Seraphite side of the city?" she asks. "I grew up there," he says.
Can you get us through without getting shot?
He looks at her steadily. "Can you?" he says.
She almost smiles.
They leave through the stadium's east exit in the early afternoon, moving into the contested zone between WLF and Seraphite territory. The streets here are quiet in the particular way of places where violence has recently happened and may happen again soon. Too quiet, the buildings watching from their broken windows, every doorway a potential problem. Lev moves differently out here than he does in the stadium. In the stadium he was contained, careful, conserving himself. Out here he expands slightly. His shoulders drop. His steps become more certain. His eyes move across the landscape with the quick, unconscious assessment of someone reading a language they grew up speaking. He knows this city. Not the WLF's city, their grid of patrols and checkpoints and fortified positions. The older city underneath it. The Seraphite paths through the overgrowth, the safe routes through the flooded streets, the places where you can move without being seen. He takes her through it. They cross into Seraphite territory through a gap in a collapsed wall that Lev seems to know exactly, stepping through into a different kind of quiet. The quiet of a community rather than a battlefield, the sounds of people going about their lives behind closed doors, the smell of wood smoke and cooked food. There are Seraphite patrols here too. They move through the streets in pairs, armed with bows and blades, watching the approaches. Lev reads their patterns with the ease of someone who has walked these routes his whole life. "Here," he murmurs, pulling her into a doorway as a patrol passes. She watches the two Seraphites walk by, their marked faces, their careful eyes, the quiet efficiency of their movement. "You know them," she says.
Some of them, he says. His voice is neutral. That one, he nods at the taller of the two, already past them now. His name is Thomas. He taught me to make arrows. She looks at the side of his face. And now, she says.
He watches Thomas disappear around the corner. "Now he would kill me if he saw me," Lev says. Simply, without self-pity.
They move on.
They fight when they have to, twice when they are spotted and cannot avoid it. Lev fights with his bow from behind cover, quiet and precise, appearing at exactly the right moment and then pulling back. He does not take shots he is not certain of. He does not fire at someone retreating. He fights like someone who is clear about what he is willing to do and what he is not. Abby watches this and thinks about it. She has not thought clearly about what she is willing to do in a long time. She has simply done what needed doing, defined needed as broadly as necessary, and not examined the results too closely. It has been effective. It has also, she is beginning to understand, cost something she has not yet fully accounted for. Lev flinches slightly when she kills a Seraphite who is already running away. Just a small tightening around his eyes. He does not say anything. He moves on.
She sees it.
They reach the hospital in the late afternoon. The building is old and solid, its lower floors converted by the Seraphites into a clinic of sorts. Surprisingly well equipped, the shelves stocked with salvage pharmaceuticals and surgical supplies organized with careful attention. A Seraphite medic treats Yara, Lev speaks to her quietly in a low voice, and whatever he says is enough to get them through the door. While Yara is being treated, Abby waits in the corridor. Owen finds her there. He has tracked her through the city. He is good at tracking, always has been, and he stands in the hospital corridor with rain on his jacket and the expression he gets when he has been thinking about something for a long time and has finally decided to say it. She was afraid, Owen says. Abby looks at him. Your father, Owen says. In the operating room, I talked to him before, while we were waiting. He was afraid that the girl didn't know, that she hadn't actually consented, that they were choosing her, that she had never been given the chance to make herself. The corridor is very still.
He was going to do it anyway, Owen says, because he believed the mission was worth it, but he was afraid. He was not certain. I thought you should know that.
Abby looks at the wall.
Why are you telling me this now? She says.
Because I've been trying to tell you for 4 years, Owen says. And you weren't ready to hear it.
He leaves her there. She stands in the Seraphite hospital corridor for a long time after he goes. The rain comes down outside. The sounds of Yara's treatment come from behind the closed door. The medic's quiet voice, the occasional sharp intake of breath.
Owen's words move through her. She does not want them to. She pushes against them the way you push against something you do not want to be true. But they move through her anyway.
Like water finding its way through stone. Chapter 7. Abby. Seattle. Day 3.
The third day is the last day. The WLF launches its full assault on the Seraphite Island before dawn. Abby hears it from the stadium. The sound of engines on the water, the distant crump of explosions, the radio traffic crackling through the command center with the clipped efficiency of a military operation that has been planned for a long time.
She goes to find Lev.
He is already awake. He is standing at the narrow window of the room where Yara is sleeping, looking out at the orange glow on the horizon above the island. His face in the firelight is very still. My mother is there, he says. I know, Abby says.
I need to go, he says.
She should say no. She knows she should say no. The island is a war zone this morning. The WLF has committed everything to this assault, and the Seraphites will fight for their home with everything they have, and walking into the middle of it is an extraordinarily good way to die. She looks at the side of his face, at the scar, at the particular set of his jaw that she is beginning to recognize, the expression he gets when he has decided something and is not going to undecide it. Yara stays here, Abby says. She's not strong enough.
She'll agree, Lev says.
I'll get us a boat, Abby says.
He turns to look at her.
She is already moving. The crossing to the island takes 20 minutes in a stolen WLF patrol boat, threading through the smoke and the chaos of the assault. The island is burning in several places. The Seraphites have set their own fires rather than let the WLF take their buildings intact. Arrows come out of the smoke. Gunfire answers. The sounds of the battle are on all sides, close and chaotic. They beach the boat on the island's south shore and move inland through the trees. The island is beautiful even now, even burning. The Seraphites have maintained it carefully. The forest paths clear, the communal buildings well kept, the gardens tended with the devotion of people who believe that caring for the land is a spiritual act. Lev moves through it quickly, his face tight, following a path he knows from childhood. They find his mother in the home she has lived in for 20 years.
She is a small woman, grey-haired, dressed in the Seraphite way, simple clothes, no technology, the ritual scar on her face that her son also bears. She is standing in the doorway of her home with a look on her face that Abby cannot fully read.
Lev stops in front of her.
There is a moment.
A long, suspended, terrible moment in which Abby can see exactly what Lev is hoping for. She can see him waiting for his mother to look at him. Really look past the cut hair and the transgression and the doctrine and choose him. Choose her son over everything else. His mother looks at him.
She reaches for the blade at her belt.
What happens is very fast. Abby is faster. Lev's mother falls. Lev stands very still. He looks at his mother on the ground of her own doorway, in front of her own home on the island where she has lived her whole life. He does not make a sound. He does not move for a long moment.
Then he looks at Abby.
His face is not angry. It is not accusing. It is the face of someone who has just had something confirmed that they already knew but were hoping was wrong. Abby puts her hand on his shoulder.
She does not say anything. There is nothing to say that would not make it worse. They move.
They find Yara on the south shore. She has followed them to the island despite everything, unwilling to let her brother go without her. She is weak from the crossing and the walk, her splinted arms held carefully against her body. The WLF soldiers find them before they can get back to the boat.
4 soldiers moving through the trees with rifles up. They have been following the sound of movement. They are not interested in conversation. Yara moves before Abby can.
She steps into the open, draws their attention to herself, makes herself the immediate problem, gives Abby the half-second she needs to pull Lev behind a tree. The soldiers focus on Yara. They are between her and the boat. She fights them.
She cannot win. She knows she cannot win. Her arms are splintered. Her strength is not what it was. She is fighting 4 armed men with a knife. She knows all of this and she fights anyway, buying every second she can because her brother is behind that tree and the boat is 20 yards further, and that is enough.
It is enough. Abby takes the soldiers from behind while they are focused on Yara. She is very fast and she is very precise, and when it is over, 3 of the 4 soldiers are down. Yara is on the ground. Lev runs to her.
She is still breathing when he reaches her. For a moment, just a moment, it seems like it might be okay, like the damage might be survivable, like they might get her to the boat, get her back to the stadium, get her to the medic in time.
She looks at Lev.
She says something to him, quietly, that Abby cannot hear.
Then she is gone. Lev stays beside her for a long moment. His hand is in her hand. He does not cry. He breathes, slowly, deliberately, like he is reminding himself how. Then he stands up. He looks at Abby. "We have to go," he says. His voice is completely steady.
They go. They take the boat back across the water. The island burns behind them, orange and reflected in the dark bay. Lev sits in the bow and does not look back. The stadium is wrong when they arrive. Abby knows it before she can say why. Something in the quality of the silence, the way the guards are not where they should be, the lights that are off in rooms that should be lit. She tells Lev to stay close. She moves through the corridors with her hand on her weapon.
She finds Owen and Mel in the aquarium room. They are on the floor, both of them. Owen on his back, his eyes open, his face still carrying the expression it had when the bullet found him. Surprise, perhaps, or something close to it. Mel beside him, curled on her side. Mel was pregnant. Abby stands in the aquarium room for a long time. The tanks are lit and clear around her. Fish move behind the glass, indifferent and beautiful. The generator hums. The water filters run. Everything works down here, the same as it always has.
Owen,
Who sat beside her when she did not ask him to. Who found her in the hospital corridor and told her the truth when it would have been easier not to. Who loved her once, a long time ago, and never stopped worrying about her, even when she made it very difficult. Mel, who was sharp and funny and occasionally unkind in the way that honest people sometimes are. Who was going to be a mother. Lev stands in the doorway behind her. He does not come in. He waits. Abby looks at Owen's face. She has been making choices for 4 years, large choices, choices that rippled outward, choices she told herself were necessary and justified and worth the cost. She told herself that story every time the cost got higher. She told it to herself in that barn in Wyoming. She looks at what those choices have led to. She stands in the aquarium room until she has looked at it long enough. Then she turns around. "Let's go," she says to Lev. They leave Seattle. They head south along the coast through the rain and the ruined landscape and the long, empty stretches between what used to be cities. They camp where they can. They move when the weather allows. Lev is quiet, quieter than before. The quietness of someone who has put something down that they will never pick up again. Abby lets him be quiet. She is quiet too. They are going to Santa Barbara. To the remnants of the fireflies, the people who are trying to put something back together out of what is left. Maybe it amounts to something. Maybe it is just somewhere to go. Either way, it is forward.
and forward is all she has.
Chapter 8. The Farm. 18 months pass. The world does not stop for grief. It never has. It simply continues. The seasons turning, the grass growing, the sun rising and setting over a landscape that does not care what has happened to the people moving through it. Ellie and Dinah build a life on a farm east of Jackson. It is a good farm. A white farmhouse with green shutters, a red barn with a weather vane in the shape of a rooster, fields that go gold in summer and silver in winter, mountains visible on 3 sides when the weather is clear. The previous occupants left it in reasonable condition. The roof sound, the well functioning, the fences needing work but not replacement. Ellie spends the first month fixing fences. She has never fixed a fence before in her life. By the end of the month she is good at it. Dinah plants a vegetable garden along the south wall of the house, where the sun hits longest. She approaches gardening with the same focused intensity she approaches most things. Reading salvaged books on the subject, experimenting, making careful notes, in a small journal she keeps on the kitchen windowsill. By summer, the garden is producing more food than the two of them can eat. She learns to preserve. The kitchen fills with jars. They get 2 horses from Tommy, sturdy, patient animals that Ellie names after things that make Dinah laugh. They get 3 chickens that Dina names after things that make Ellie roll her eyes. The chickens lay eggs with reliable enthusiasm. The baby arrives in early spring.
He is small and loud, and he arrives at 3 in the morning during a rainstorm. And by the time the sun comes up, he has been in the world for 4 hours and already seems very certain that he belongs in it. They name him JJ. He has Jessie's eyes.
Ellie holds him for the first time sitting in the chair by the bedroom window, the rain still coming down outside, the dawn light grey and soft. He's so small. She has held guns and tools and her own wounds and Joel's guitar, and she has never held anything that felt like this, like something that could break, like something that mattered in a way she could not articulate. Something in her chest loosens slightly. She tries to build a life here. She means it. She gets up every morning and she does the work of the farm. The fences, the horses, the patrols around the perimeter, the chopping of wood and the hauling of water, and the 100 small tasks that constitute survival when survival has been organized into something resembling normalcy. She sits with JJ in the evenings and sings to him softly, the way Joel sang to her in the early days of Jackson, off-key and unself-conscious, not caring if it sounds good, caring only that the sound is there. There are good days, real, full, good days. Days when she is present in the farm, in the work, in the small pleasures of a meal that came from their own garden, and an evening that is quiet and safe. Days when Dina makes her laugh until she has to sit down. Days when JJ does something new, rolls over, grabs a finger, looks at her with his bright, curious eyes, and she feels something uncomplicated. But the nights are difficult. The nightmares come with a regularity she has stopped trying to fight. Joel in the barn, Jessie in the aquarium corridor, the things she did in the hospital basement in Seattle, the things she has sealed away and does not look at in the daylight. They come out in the dark, cycling through her sleeping mind with a patience and persistence that feel almost deliberate, as if some part of her is determined to make her look at what she has done. She wakes gasping. She lies still in the dark and listens to the farm, the horses in the barn, the wind in the eaves, JJ's small breathing from the crib across the hall, and waits for her heart to slow. She does not tell Dina. Dina has enough to carry. She tries to play guitar several times in the first months on the farm. She takes Joel's guitar down from the wall where she has hung it and sits with it in her lap. She places her fingers on the fretboard. She tries to find the chord shapes that have lived in her hands for 3 years, the shapes that Joel's patience built into her muscle memory. She cannot make them come. Something has locked up somewhere between her intention and her hands. The knowledge is there. She can feel it somewhere beneath the surface, but it will not come through. She sits with the guitar in her lap and her fingers on the strings, and nothing happens.
She puts it back on the wall. She does not try again.
Tommy comes to the farm on a cold morning in October, riding up the long dirt road from the highway with his collar up against the wind. He looks thinner than he did in Jackson. His eyes have the particular quality that extended purpose gives them. Focused and flat, looking past the immediate at something further away. Ellie sees him coming from the kitchen window. She goes outside to meet him. They sit on the porch steps. Dina takes JJ inside. "I found her," Tommy says. Ellie does not ask who. "Santa Barbara," Tommy says. "She's a prisoner. Group called the Rattlers. They run the harbour down there, use captives for labour. She and a kid are in cages on the beach." Ellie looks out at the fields. The winter wheat is coming up along the south field, thin green lines in the brown earth. "It's over, Tommy," she says. "Jessie is dead," Tommy says. His voice is completely even, flat. The voice of someone who has removed all the feeling from a sentence to make it easier to say. "Joel is dead, and she is alive and being kept by slavers, and that is not—" He stops. He breathes. "That is not justice. That is not anything."
"We came home," Ellie says. "We have a life here. JJ is here." "I know," Tommy says. He stays for dinner. He holds JJ for a while in the evening, standing by the window looking out at the dark fields. JJ grabs his finger and holds it with his whole small fist.
In the morning, Tommy is gone. That night, after Tommy leaves, after Dina sleeps, after JJ settles, Ellie lies in the dark and looks at the ceiling. She thinks about Joel. She thinks about the last night in Jackson, the porch, the stars. The way he said goodnight in that quiet voice, the voice he had developed in Jackson, the voice that was softer than the one he had when she first met him. She thinks about the watch on the windowsill, still ticking. She wound it that morning, as she winds it every morning. She thinks about the guitar on the wall. She thinks about all the things she never said to him, all the conversations she was saving for later, for when she was ready, for when it felt like the right time. There was not a right time. There was only time, and then there was not. She lies in the dark for a long time. In the morning, she gets up before Dina wakes. She makes coffee. She sits at the kitchen table with the coffee going cold in front of her and writes a note. She does not write much. She tells Dina she is sorry. She tells her she will come back. She tells her that some things cannot be left. She takes the note to the bedroom doorway. Dina is asleep, JJ in his crib beside her. She stands there for a moment, looking at them in the early light. Then she goes to the wall and takes down Joel's guitar. She wraps it in a blanket, the way she did when she brought it to Seattle. She straps it to her pack. She walks out of the farmhouse into the cold morning air. The fields are silver with frost. The mountains are pink in the first light. The horses watch her from the fence with their calm brown eyes. She does not look back. Chapter 9. Santa Barbara. The journey south takes 3 weeks. She moves through the ruined landscape of the California coast, past the collapsed overpasses of the Bay Area, through the long agricultural valleys gone to wildflowers and scrub, along the coast road where the Pacific is always visible to the west, grey and enormous and indifferent. She camps in abandoned motels and farmhouses. She avoids the settlements she passes, the small communities of survivors who have built their lives in the ruins of the old world.
She is not here for them.
Santa Barbara reveals itself slowly. The ocean first, bluer and warmer than the grey Pacific she has been following. And then the smell of bougainvillea, improbably sweet. And then the city itself, low and white and overgrown, the old Spanish architecture buried under 20 years of untended vegetation. It is beautiful. It is also entirely controlled by the rattlers. She watches from the hills above the city for the better part of a day. She watches the patrols and the guard rotations and the patterns of movement through the streets. The rattlers are organized, not military organized, not WLF organized, but organized in the way that efficient, ruthless people organize themselves when they have decided that other people are resources to be managed. Their prisoners work the harbour, clearing debris, loading salvage onto boats. They work the fields on the east side of the city, tending the crops that feed the rattlers' community. They wear rope collars, guards with dogs move among them. Nobody runs. There are cages on the beach.
She watches the cages.
She goes in at night. She comes down from the hills in the dark, moving through the overgrown streets of the residential neighborhoods above the waterfront. The bougainvillea is everywhere up here, cascading over fences and walls and collapsed rooftops. The flowers pale in the darkness, their scent almost overwhelming. She moves slowly. She has time. She has planned this carefully, and she has time. She takes the first guard at the perimeter checkpoint quietly, then the second. She moves into the outer ring of the rattlers' territory, the warehouses along the waterfront, converted to storage and workshops. And she moves through them room by room, the way Joel taught her, clearing as she goes.
She is very good at this.
She has been very good at this for a long time, and she is tired of being good at it. And she does it anyway because it is what this moment requires. The beach cages are on the south side of the harbour. She reaches them as the sky is beginning to lighten in the east. The first grey suggestion of dawn, the stars going out one by one. There are a dozen cages. She moves along them quickly, looking at the occupants. A man, a woman, 2 men, a teenage girl, until she finds what she is looking for. Abby is in the second to last cage. She is almost unrecognizable. Months of captivity and whatever the rattlers have put her through have stripped away everything. The extraordinary physical presence, the size, the strength, the contained power that was so apparent in Seattle is gone, replaced by angles and hollows, the body consuming itself for fuel. Her hair is gone, shaved at some point. Her face is gaunt, the bones prominent, the skin drawn tight. She is sitting against the bars of the cage with her knees pulled up to her chest. She is awake. When she hears Ellie's footsteps, she looks up, and her eyes take a moment to focus, a moment to clear, a moment to recognize what she is seeing. In the cage beside hers, unconscious and very still, is a boy, Lev. Ellie looks at them both for a moment. Then she takes out her knife and starts on the cage locks. The first lock takes a minute. The second takes less. She swings Lev's cage open first and then Abby's. Abby unfolds herself from the floor of the cage, slowly, carefully, like someone relearning how their body works. She gets to her feet. She stands. She looks at Ellie. Neither of them speaks for a moment. The beach is quiet around them. The ocean moves against the sand with its patient, indifferent sound. "I'm taking the kid," Abby says. Her voice is barely above a whisper. Rough and unused, the voice of someone who has not spoken much in a long time.
"I know," Ellie says.
A pause.
"But first," Ellie says. Abby looks at her. She understands.
They move away from the cages, away from Lev, toward the waterline. The sand is wet and cold. The ocean is beginning to catch the first light of the dawn, silver and grey, the horizon a thin line of pale gold. They fight. It is not the fight that either of them would have chosen. Abby is starved and weakened, her strength a fraction of what it was in Seattle. Ellie is worn down by 3 weeks of hard travel, by 18 months of nightmares, by years of carrying things that are too heavy. They fight anyway. It is exhausting and slow and close. In the wet sand at the water's edge, the cold Pacific coming in around their feet, and then their ankles, and then their knees, as they move deeper without noticing. The sky lightens overhead. The first seabirds begin to call somewhere along the shore. Ellie is faster. She has always been faster. She gets behind Abby in the shallow water. She gets her arm around Abby's neck. She bears down, driving them both forward, and Abby goes under.
Ellie holds her there.
The water is very cold. It moves around them, the small waves pushing and pulling, indifferent to what is happening in it. Ellie looks at the water. She looks at her own hands beneath the surface, pale and rippling in the moving water. She sees Joel. Not the Joel from the nightmares, not the Joel in the barn, not the Joel on the floor, not the Joel she has been running from in her sleep for 18 months. The Joel on the porch, the Joel with the stars behind him, leaning on the railing, saying better than I deserve, in that quiet voice that was softer than the one he used to have. The Joel who taught her guitar with inexhaustible patience, over and over, the same chord, the same progression, until her fingers knew it without her having to think. The Joel who said goodnight, baby girl.
The Joel who lied to her to keep her alive.
The Joel who loved her.
She lets go.
Abby comes up. She breaks the surface, gasping, her whole body heaving, the water streaming from her face. She chokes. She breathes. She gets her feet under her and stands in the knee-deep water, bent forward, her hands on her knees.
Ellie steps back.
The cold water is around her legs. Her hands are shaking. The shaking started somewhere in the middle of the fight and has not stopped. She looks at Abby.
Abby looks at her.
"Go!" Ellie says. Her voice comes out rough, barely recognizable as her own. "Take him and go!" Abby straightens up. She looks at Ellie for a long moment, a look that Ellie cannot fully read, that has too many things in it to separate out.
Then she wades back to shore.
She goes to Lev's cage. She gets him up. He is semi-conscious, barely aware, leaning all his weight against her. And she takes that weight without comment, without adjustment, the way you take the weight of someone you are not going to put down. She half carries him along the beach to the pier. There is a boat tied at the end, a small motorboat, nothing impressive, enough. She gets Lev in, she gets herself in. She starts the engine.
The boat moves out into the harbour.
Ellie watches from the waterline. The sun is fully up now. The light catches the water and turns it gold. The whole harbour gold, the boat moving through it, getting smaller. She watches until she cannot see Abby's face anymore. until she cannot see the boat clearly, until it is just a small shape against the gold water, and then just the gold water.
She stands there for a long time.
The ocean moves against her legs, cold and patient. She is just a person standing in the Pacific, alone. The shaking in her hands has stopped. Epilogue. The guitar.
She goes back to the farm.
She is not sure why exactly. Maybe because it is the last place she was something other than what she has been for the past 3 weeks. Maybe because there is something she needs to see before she can go anywhere else. Maybe just because it is north, and north is the direction of home, and home is the only direction she has left.
The drive takes 3 days.
She comes up the long dirt road from the highway in the early afternoon, the farm appearing gradually as she crests the low rise. The white farmhouse, the red barn, the fields in their winter brown. It looks exactly as she left it. The weather-vane rooster turns slowly in the cold wind. Dina is gone. She knew this before she arrived. The note she left told Dina to go to Jackson, and Dina is not someone who needs to be told something twice when it is the right thing to do. The farmhouse is empty and clean. Dishes washed, surfaces wiped, the fire banked. Dinah left it the way she leaves things with care. JJ's crib is gone from the bedroom. Ellie walks through the empty rooms. She walks through the kitchen where Dinah's herb pots are still on the windowsill, drying now, past saving, but still there, still themselves. She walks through the living room, past the drawings on the walls, past the bookshelves Dinah organized by colour because she thought it looked better that way. She climbs the stairs. Joel's guitar is on the wall of the bedroom, where she hung it when they first arrived. She takes it down. She sits on the edge of the bed. Outside the window, the mountains are enormous and indifferent and beautiful, doing what mountains do. Simply being there, unchanged by anything that happens at their feet. She settles the guitar in her lap. She looks at her left hand. The middle and ring fingers are gone, lost in the aquarium fight in Seattle, in the moment when the moment was happening and there was no room to think about what it would mean later. She remembers it now, the sharp wrongness of it, quickly overridden by everything else that needed her attention. She filed it away. Later is now.
She puts what fingers she has on the fretboard. The thumb, the index, the pinky. She finds the strings. She presses down.
She strums with her right hand. The chord that comes out is wrong. It is recognizably related to the chord she intended. The shape is there. The intention is there. But it is incomplete. Something is missing from it. It knows it is missing something.
She tries another chord.
Wrong again. Almost. Not quite. She sits with the guitar in her lap and looks at her incomplete hand on the incomplete chord and thinks about Joel sitting across from her in his living room in Jackson, patient as she has never seen him be patient about anything else, saying again from the top in his quiet voice.
She thinks about the last song he taught her. The slow one. The one she played in the Seattle theater until she could not continue.
She puts her fingers back on the fretboard.
She plays.
It is not right. It will never be right in the way it used to be right. The way it was right when she had all her fingers and Joel was 4 blocks away, and the worst thing she could imagine had not happened yet. That version is gone.
But this version is something.
It is the song with the loss built into it, the missing notes where the missing fingers would have been, the gaps in the chord, the silences that are not quite silences. It is the song as she can play it now, in this body, at this point in her life, with everything that has happened.
She plays it through, she plays it again. By the third time through, it does not sound wrong anymore. It sounds like itself, like what it is. She plays until the light goes.
Then she sets the guitar down gently on the bed. She smooths the blanket beside it. She looks at it for a moment. The worn wood, the scratched finish, the strings that need replacing. She picks it back up. She wraps it in its blanket. She straps it to her pack.
She walks out of the farmhouse.
The night is cold and clear, the stars out in their full depth above the valley, the Milky Way visible from horizon to horizon. The same stars she and Joel watched from the porch in Jackson on that last night, from what feels like a different life. She stands in the farmyard for a moment. The horses watch her from the fence. She goes to them and puts her hand on the nearest one's neck, feels the warmth of it, the solidity. "Hey," she says. The horse breathes.
She picks up her pack. She starts walking. She does not know yet where she is going. Not precisely, not with a plan. She knows the general direction, north, toward Jackson, toward Dina and JJ and whatever conversation needs to happen when she gets there. She knows it will not be simple. She knows she has left things that may not be there when she returns for them. She knows she let go.
She knows what it cost to get to that moment in the water. She knows it cost her everything she had. And she knows she came out the other side of it, not fixed, but different. Not healed, but changed.
She knows the guitar on her back is missing something it will never get back.
She knows she's going to play it anyway. The farm disappears behind her as she crests the rise. The mountains are dark shapes against the stars ahead. The road runs north through the frost-silvered fields, straight and clear. She walks, the stars wheel slowly overhead, as they have always done, as they will continue to do long after all of this is over and the people who lived through it are gone and the world has become something else entirely.
She keeps walking. She keeps walking. Thank you for traveling this long road with us tonight.
The Last of Us. Part 2 is a story about what happens when grief becomes the whole of a person. When the need for justice, or what feels like justice, becomes indistinguishable from the need to destroy. It is a story about two women who mirror each other across a divide of loss, who each became something they did not intend to become, who each had the chance at the end to stop. Abby stopped.
Ellie stopped. It cost them everything to get there. Whether it was too late, or just in time, or somewhere in the complicated middle where most real things happen, that is a question the story leaves open, because those are the questions that real life leaves open.
But they stopped. Let your breathing slow now. Let the weight of this story settle and release. Let your body be heavy and warm. You have traveled a long way tonight.
Whatever you are carrying, set it down.
Rest now. The morning will come. It always does. Good night.